Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Stuff We Can Do in Excel. This is Richard, and today we're going to look at 14 new features in Excel 365. We're going to go pretty quick with this, but I think you're going to find something in here that you'll find useful. So let's just get right into it. So Excel 365, sometimes called Excel for the web, looks a little different than our Excel desktop, and it has some different features in it. So sometimes features show up here before they show up in the desktop version, but what we're going to look at is 14 features that we see here now that we didn't used to see. So one of the first things we're going to look at is this new simplified ribbon that we have. So if I take my simplified ribbon, and what I mean by that, you see how this has all these different menus here, and it kind of takes up some extra real estate. This can be really bad, particularly if you've got a smaller screen, like if you're working on a laptop. So you can shrink this down by clicking, or going all the way over to the far right. See this red arrow that's in the ribbon, or down arrow that's in the ribbon. Click on that. It's going to give you an option to go to a single line, and when you do, it's going to shrink that up significantly. Okay, so that really is going to be helpful to you to create some more real estate, particularly when you're working with a smaller computer screen. To get out of it, click on that down arrow again and go to Classic Ribbon, and it gives you back all those menus. The next thing I want to talk about is version history. So I've got this file here, and the reality is that we now have a tool called version history. Click on File, click on Info, and version history, and we see all the different versions of the file that are out there. Now, why is that important? Well, let's say you're working on a file and you you delete some stuff and you change some stuff just to see what it would look like, and then without thinking you change the file, you save it, and now all of a sudden you've lost everything that was in the prior version of the file. Well, you haven't lost it, because if you go to version control, you can simply go to version history. You can simply reopen the prior version that you had. So you can click on an older version, maybe a version from Tuesday, and you can simply restore that version, or you can just go back to the document you were working on earlier. And so that's a really nice tool, the version tool. The next thing I want to look at is quick copying a range of values. Now, we've done this before. Typically, in this data, if you look over in column G, all these items are formulas. It's column D2 times E2 times F2, D3 times E3 times F3. And you got these formulas. Sometimes you want to copy this data, but you don't want to bring the formulas. Historically, what many of us have done, we copy this like this, right? And we right click and we copy, and we go where we want it. Then we go up here to home, and we're going to click on paste, and we'll go paste values or paste special, right? We click on that, and sure enough, that does it for us. These things over there in column G are now numbers or values, not formulas. But maybe that's not what we want to do. Let's see if we can't do it just a little bit quicker way, because apparently Excel likes it anytime you can just do it even one click quicker. So we copy it. Now we're going to go to where we want it, and we simply do Control Shift V, and it's going to copy that. So we go back in here. I'm going to copy this, and we'll go down to where we want it. Control Shift V, and there it is. And now we've got those same items, but in values instead of with formulas. Next thing I want to show you is the sort of improved text to column tool. So if you go in here, we've got these names, and actually let me get these undo these for a second. Let's get rid of these here. So we've got these names, and we want to split those into first names and last names. The text to columns tool is not in it of itself a new tool, but the interface is a little bit easier to deal with. So we're simply going to highlight what we want. We're going to go up to Data, and we're going to click on the text to columns tool, which is over here, sort of toward the right end of the ribbon. And we click on that, and the interface looks a lot different now and a little bit easier to interpret. So if I don't have it, if I use there are no commas, so that doesn't help. Semicolons doesn't help. But if I'm going to delineate this by space, I click this, and it shows me what it's going to look like. I hit Apply, and there I've done my split columns. So it's a whole lot easier to use the text to column tools now than it might have been in the past. I want to show you down here on the bottom line. See these three straight lines? These didn't used to be there. This opens up a menu that shows you all of the tabs that you have. Okay, so you can take these tabs now and you can jump around from tab to tab, clicking on those 3 lines, going to a different tab, very, very easily doing that within Excel. The other thing that they've added related to these tabs is a new unhide feature. So I'm going to hide 3 of these tabs. And now, typically, we would have gone, we would have right-clicked on this, and it would have given us an option to unhide, and we would have unhid all of those. But now when you click on unhide, you get an option. You can actually choose which tabs to unhide and which tabs to leave hidden. So if I click on all 3 of these, let's just click on one of them, it's going to only unhide the one I told it to hide. If I right-click, you're going to see that I still have these other 2 that I can unhide, and I can unhide those as well. But it's a nice tool that now you can select what you're going to unhide instead of just having to unhide everything at once. The next thing I want to show you is a new assignment tool that's built into Excel, into the comments tool. So we've done this before where you go in, you right-click, you're going to have a new comment, you type a comment. But now there's a tool built into this that allows you to assign a task. So I might say check accuracy. And I want to assign this to somebody in my organization. Let's just assign it to myself. So I'm going to say @ and I'm going to pick my email address. Here it is. And then I'm going to assign this to me. And I'm going to hit go. And when it does that, it's going to record my comment along with who I signed this to. And then what I'm going to get is the person you sent it to is going to get an email that looks something like this. And it's going to tell them that the emails come in, they've got an assignment, it's going to give them a link to the Excel file, they can click on this, open it up, make the changes or make the checks they need to make within the Excel file, click done, and then send a comment back. I found no errors. And when they send that back, what's going to happen is it's going to come back and it's going to show up right here in this comment window. So it'll have a series, it'll have a whole trail of all the comments between the creator of the file and the people to whom different tasks were assigned, all in this little nice audit trail right here, so you can see what's going on, see who did what when they did it. So it's a real nice, helpful tool. The next thing we have is something called a quick menu search tool, and this is new. We're used to doing things where we click on this and we can do things like change the format, add a hyperlink, add a comment, a lot of things we can do in there. But now at the very top of this menu is now something called search the menus. So if I wanted to type in text, let's type it in text, say 2 columns. Well, there it is. Text to columns is right there. What if I wanted, instead of text to columns, I wanted to do copy? Well, there's the copy feature. What if I wanted to do pivot table? It takes me right to the pivot table. I could create a table. It's going to take me to the table tool. So I can type in all kinds of things. I don't have to go searching for them up on the ribbon anymore. Because if you're like me, sometimes you just forget where something is. There's so much to remember. If you forget where it is, all you have to do is go to this search line, type in what you're looking for, and it will find it for you. So what if we typed in a new feature called Analyze Data? Oh, this is a cool feature. So we're not going to do it here. We're actually going to do it on the next screen. So I've got all this data on this next screen, and I want to analyze this. Now, I could do a bunch of pivot tables and try to figure out which I want to do pivot tables for, but this new tool is an AI tool that's built in that's going to make this much quicker for you. So I can now click anywhere in this table. I can right-click, and I can say Analyze Data. This is a new tool built into Excel, and when I click on Analyze Data, it's going to open up a window over here on the right-hand side, and you can size that, make it bigger or smaller, and it's going to give you some analyses so that you can pick and choose what you might want to use. Hopefully, it's going to give you something that's useful to you. So here it's got sales by segment. That might be useful to you. Profit by product. It gives discounts by segment and year. It tells me that enterprise has noticeably lower profit than the other segments do. I've got 33 additional results I can go look at. Some of them are useful, some of them not quite so useful. It's going to pull these up. It takes a few seconds for it to populate. But the point is, it's going to give you a lot of information here. Now, all this information may or may not be valuable to you. It may or may not create the chart that you wanted it to create. Well, first of all, it's going to give you some additional suggested questions you might want to ask. But in addition, you can type in a question. What if I want sales by product? We didn't see that one before. It'll create it for me just like that. And what's really cool is I can now take and click insert this pivot chart, and it will insert this into the document of my choice. I can do it with that. I can do it with pivot tables. If I create a pivot table, I could do a table of sales by product, by region. And it's going to give me that table, and it'll call it a pivot table, and it'll insert that pivot table for me into any document I'm working on. Really powerful tool, but you need to understand the questions you're wanting answered, and if it doesn't give you that, you still might have to create it, but this is a real quick way to get some analysis right up front with just the click of a button. Now, there are two other tools I want to use here and talk about. The first one is Immersive Reader. And under the Immersive Reader, it's going to allow people to read all the text that's in your spreadsheet much easier. So we highlight the text we want to look at. We go to View, and we're going to go down to this new tool that's in here called Immersive Reader. You've not seen that before. And when you click on it, you're going to get a view of the text that you just highlighted. And what's really cool is it will read this for you. We click on this button down here. I'm not going to do it right now, but it will click and it will play, and a voice will actually read this for you. If you want to, you can read it one line at a time, or 3 lines at a time, or 5 lines at a time. So it'll read that for you. And for people that have trouble following text, this can be a really helpful tool. In addition, and this is pretty cool, we'll turn that off, it can actually put this in a different language for you. So I can put this into, let's say, French. Now, if you picked a different language, I've already done French, so it's going to bring it up pretty quickly. But if you did a different language, it might take a moment for it to do all the translation. But when I click on this, it's going to tell, and I want the whole document, it's going to go in there and it's going to translate that into French for me. And if I hit the read button down below, you know what it's going to do? It's going to actually read it in French. So that's really, really helpful. If you have somebody who you're sending this document to and their first language is not English, they have trouble reading English, they can switch this to a language, or you could switch it for them really, really quickly. And just clicking original takes you right back to the English version of that. So it's a really, really useful and powerful tool that's now built into Excel. The final thing is a record actions tool. And many of us have done this. I've never particularly cared for doing macros, but a lot of people do them all the time. But for those people who don't really like doing macros very much, but have a need to do one, this is a really useful tool. Let's say, for example, you have clients from different regions sending you information. It's the same information, but the format isn't exactly what you want it to be in. Maybe the format I want this to be in is I want these 2 columns to be centered. I want this column to be centered. I want these all to be numbers. Maybe I want to add a gross margin percentage column. So I want to do that, and I want to do that for every single file that they send me. So how do I do that? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to this new button called Automate. When I click on Automate, it brings up this whole set of windows. We're going to go to Record Actions. So I'm going to record actions, and I can make this box a little bigger if I want to. So it's going to open this up, and it's going to give me some options. Now, it's already recording so that if I type anything, if I do anything to the spreadsheet, it's going to record that action. First thing I'm going to take column A and column B, and I want to center that. So it's now recorded that. So column C, I'm going to center that also, and it records that as the next step. The next step, I want columns D, E, and F. I want those to be a accounting format, but I don't want the decimals, so I'm going to take those decimals out. Column G, I'm going to call it gross margin, margin percentage. Well, that's not what I want. GM percentage. And I'm also going to change this to a percentage format. So I'm going to change that format of that column to a We'll go up here and change it to percentage. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my formula, equals gross margin divided by sales. Now, because this is in a table, it's going to copy this formula all the way down in the table. Now, I can say stop, and it's going to record all of these actions. I'm now going to change the name of this. Let's call this editor, let's call this set of actions something. Let's call it, we'll just call it, for lack of a better term, we'll call it Richard's example. Okay? And I'll hit enter, and it's going to have this recorded for me now. So I can get out of this if I want to. And when I go look at, and I'm going to shut this down, if I go look at automate, it's going to see, we're going to see in here somewhere that I now have, well, it's not in there. Okay, so I fixed it. So the problem was I typed in Richard with an apostrophe S. It doesn't like you to do that. So I can go in and I can change this again. We'll call this now Richard Sample. And it will change the name of this to Richard Sample. You can see it's changed it up there. So we've got our script. It's in there. I'm going to close this down. And we're going to go to this next tab down here, these Richard's actions. And this is something, somebody's now sent us information for the North Division, but it doesn't look like the other. Notice it doesn't, these aren't centered, these aren't number or accounting format. There's no gross margin percentage. That's really simple. I just click here. You know, I can simply go to automate. I can click on Richard's Sample. It's going to open it up, and I'm going to click run. And what it's going to do is it's going to run all that script on this data, and now it's exactly the way I want it. This is really helpful when you've got, I had somebody tell me they were asking their client to send them information, and the client would send them the information, but it wasn't in the format they needed. And every time the client sent them the information, they had to go through the process of cleaning up the data and getting it set up the way they needed it. Well, this is really simple. You run this script, you save this script, and then all you got to do is run it, and it fixes everything you got to fix all at once. Really simple tool, really powerful add-on. Well, that's our 14 new features in Excel 365. If you like this video, click the like button below. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you click on the little bell, every time I load up a new file, you'll get a notice about it. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you'll be able to put some of these tools to work really soon and make your work more efficient.